What's up, guys? This is the second devotion. Last week we talked on Daniel and how he exemplified some of the points in Titus chapter 2. This week we're going to look at the scripture from 1 Samuel chapter 17 and 18 and how, kind of two takeaways from the life of David. David was a young man, a lot like you and I, probably a little bit younger than me. I think people will say he's probably somewhere between 16 and 18 years old, just under the cut to make the military, but he was old enough to be a shepherd and checking in on his brothers. His dad would send supplies and stuff like that to get to his older bros who were fighting. So we'll look at this time. This is the Israelites fighting the Philistines, and David rolls up into camp, and Goliath, the giant, is out there talking trash, talking bad about God, talking bad about the Israelites, and David goes to the king and says, "Listen, king, if no one wants to fight, let me fight this Philistine. God will deliver him into my hand." And King Saul looks at him and is like, "You're just a boy. How are you going to fight this giant who's been fighting for years? He's a man of war. You're just a child." And David's response was, very bold. He says, King Saul, I'm a shepherd, and when I'm watching my father's sheep, if a lion or a bear comes against me, I go after it. And I strike it so that the sheep is released out of its mouth, and then when it rises up against me, I'll grab that thing by the beard and I kill it. And he says, I've done it. I've killed a lion, killed a bear, and God did that through me. He said, so the same God that delivered the lion and the bear into my hand will deliver this Philistine. And so first takeaway is this: David was confident, but his confidence came from the Lord. The Lord was the one that gave him the victory that allowed him to do these things. And so his courage that he exemplifies is really something that I want to take away, and I hope you guys do as well. So we fast forward a little bit. David has a huge victory, kills Goliath with a slingshot, then rips out the dude's sword, actually hacks Goliath's head off, and then he carries his head around. And so, for me, I'm thinking, the storybook picture of David and Goliath, it doesn't portray that. It portrays him with a little slingshot. But this dude was a man. He's fighting lions, fighting bears. I've seen those guys at the zoo, and I don't want anything to have to do with a lion or a bear fight. This dude he's for real. He's dragging around the giant's head to the king. That's just a little side note. But coming out of that, they go home. They're coming back. Massive victory for the Israelites. The Philistines are pushed back into their home country, and the women on the way home are singing and dancing on the streets, saying, Saul's killed his thousands, but David is 10,000s. And so Saul, being the king, he was kind of the man. He's good looking, successful. He starts getting jealous, saying, oh, wow, so who's this young kid? He has favor of the warriors, favor now from the women back home. He's had military success. What's next? Is he going to be the next king? And so David's in his presence. David was also a skilled musician. And a few days later, a few verses later, not sure how much time has transpired, David's playing music in the king's court to kind of calm his spirit whenever he's troubled. And it says that two separate times Saul grabs a spear and throws it at David to pin him against the wall. And I'm reading this thinking like, dang, what has David done? He killed the giant, led to a massive victory. He should be getting celebrated. There should be banquets in his honor. Give him Warrior of the Year. Hook this guy up. But instead, the king's jealousy and rage leads him to try to kill him. And David's response is what I really want to highlight. In verse 14, it says, "And David behaved wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Therefore, when Saul saw that he behaved very wisely, he was afraid of him." And my takeaway was this, guys. David acted, he did what he was supposed to do. And he was under a bad leader, a leader that was jealous and ultimately tried to kill him from that jealousy and the rage. And my thinking was, I don't have a king throwing a spear at me, but I am under certain people's authority. Right now I'm playing basketball. I've done that for a lot of my life. And so when I'm under the authority of my coach, how do I act? Am I the guy in the locker room that's, man, coach is tripping. He should have played me in the fourth quarter. He should have given that last shot to me. Practice sucks. We go way too long. He doesn't know how to handle conditioning. Am I that guy griping and complaining about authority? Or am I the one, regardless of if the authority is good or bad, am I out acting wisely in everything that I'm doing? David's doing it in adverse situations. What you and I are facing are nothing near that. So I know it's not a decision as easy as, bam, tomorrow I'm waking up, I'm acting wisely like David. It's obviously a process. But if David can do it as a young man, so can I, so can you. And the verse that comes to mind when thinking about wisdom is found in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 9. Proverbs 9, verse 10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." And for me, guys, I'm not a scholar, but I'm thinking my takeaway from this would be, for us to fear the Lord, I think it means to step back, to slow down. Let's realize who God is, how great, how big, how powerful, how everything is about Him, and how small we are. And I think when we see that perspective, we have things correctly viewed on how big He is and how small we are. That's when we're fearing the Lord, and He can then begin building wisdom in our lives. As young men, Proverbs is always a great place to start. That scripture was found, Proverbs 9, verse 10. Always great to read those. So feel free to hit me up if you have any questions. And yeah, I'll purpose to have another one of these up next Sunday.